10.
Hello and welcome to LOP Radio. My name is Matt Maher, aka Imp, and obviously this is LOP Radio on YouTube, on Spreaker, and wherever you get your podcast feeds. Today is quite a serious show. If you're listening on the podcast version, you heard me kind of just be a little bit chipper just before, but I was getting everything ready last minute. Now we're officially live everywhere. We're going to take it to the bit more serious tone than the rest of the show. This is more, let's just get through the topic through all of this. There's really only one thing I could have possibly been talking about today. Right up until I went live, there's new news coming out. So I have got my laptop to the right of me, just in case new news comes out and I can talk about it by the time we get towards the end of the show. Because it's been endless for hours and I'm just like, I've got to go live at some point. So I'm going to blast through it all. If anything new comes out, then I can just talk about it there. Because it's obviously a very quickly developing story, as it has been for quite a long time now, but now it's actually impacting America. It's rapidly increasing. Like over here in the UK as well, like half an hour ago it came out that the Arsenal coach Mikel Arteta's tested positive for coronavirus, and now the Premier League is holding an emergency thing tomorrow. So that's come out in the last 30 minutes, and that's on top of everything going on in America as well. Before I get into stuff, obviously I will be talking about COVID-19, the coronavirus today. Go with it more about its impact on WrestleMania, because of course this is a wrestling podcast. I brought up Mikel Arteta, but that's just kind of to emphasise the rapid amount of news that's constantly happening. This is not going to be like a wide thing. I'm going to do my best to not drift into the politics of it, which is going to be very difficult when talking about America, but I'll try my best because it's so tightly tied to it, where that America's the only country where this is an issue as far as I know, where it's so tightly tied to politics, where I'm going to have to dabble a bit, but I'll do my best to keep it focused on the main topic at hand, read it back to wrestling, the way that it's impacting certain promotions, what they're doing, what they've had to do in terms of the news and stuff. It's going to be quite a newsy episode as well. I was thinking, I am absolutely knackered, daytime work as well. We've got a thing over here as well of everybody joining WhatsApp groups and things, so they can all team members and stuff from different jobs. My brother's had the same thing at his work. We've all had to be on the channel together essentially, so that our team leader could just say whether to come in or not and stuff. So it's getting things are getting in place. The next steps are all being introduced in quite formal manners. So it's very real over here. I don't know what it's like in America. How it looks from afar isn't great, but it's quite it's not great over here either. To be fair, it's not going to be that great anyway. It's such a difficult thing to handle. But again, I'll focus it on WrestleMania because today's topic is, are WWE cancelling WrestleMania? Will it be cancelled? Should it be cancelled? What will happen in place if it does get cancelled? Will it just be postponed, rescheduled, or will they do something different, like a big empty stadium show or limited amount of people show? Which is impacting the weekly shows as well, which I'll get to later as well. There's so many articles to get through. However, before we get into the news, in terms of the actual virus, what we're talking about, I know most people will be keeping up to date with this because it's such a big story. But before we entered everything, I wanted to just make sure that we're all on the same kind of playing field and the same amount of what we know going in. So I'm just going to cover the basics. That is a total package news thing. So just in case you've not followed it as tightly, I don't know, just to quickly explain what it is we're dealing with I'm not going to get that much into it, to be fair. So it's called the coronavirus because its actual name is COVID-19, which stands for Coronavirus Disease 2019. So COVID-19. So Coronavirus Disease 2019. Coronavirus is the category. It comes under the same one as the flu or the cold or SARS, if given a bit more stream as well. So it's the difference with this one is how contagious it is, as in how easily it spreads from person to person. So the percentage of death from it is pretty low, But in terms of how easily it spreads, it's really high. So more people are going to get it. So put the two together, that over the course of time, that could equal a lot more deaths just because of how contagious it is. So it's pretty serious in that regard. And kind of linking it to why events are being cancelled, to kind of rein myself in from going too much into like the history or anything or stuff to do with it. In terms of why events specifically are being cancelled, because I've seen some information on this, unfortunately, even on Laws of Pain. But we are economist advisors, we're able to talk about what we want to talk about. But I want to, like, if I'm going to talk about stuff, I'm going to make sure I am not speaking just off any opinion. This misinformation is quite dangerous in this field, and you see the opinions are repeated, so you know they have effect. But the point with cancelling events is not to protect you at the show from catching it and then maybe dying. The point is to delay the spread of the virus. I'm annoyed I stuttered there because a flow needed there for us to kind of drive it home. The point is to delay the spread of the virus, not to protect you from catching it and suffering the consequences maybe. The difference with COVID-19 is how easily it spreads. The likelihood of you contracting it if you were to come in contact is extremely high. The point is not to protect you, the individual, but from you spreading the virus, and potentially someone else who catches it may not be so lucky. So you might not die, but if you go to WrestleMania, for example, you contract the disease, because Tampa is a known state with a outbreak problem. You contract the disease, you go home, maybe you go to work, and you pass it on to somebody at work, their family member dies. You could be directly responsible for that happening, which is why the cancellation of events is so important in stopping the spreading of this. Because it limits the spreading. It, as I said, delays the spread, doesn't end it spreading, because it's going to spread still. It's one of those things where it's the not great reality and the immediate YouTube demonetization kind of thing, because I'm talking about a serious topic, but this is way too serious for YouTube's BS, essentially. The events, essentially, WrestleMania could work as like a petri dish just to spread the virus, and then 60,000 people go all the way back home, and that's all spread everywhere. So it's pretty important. So in terms of the news in relating it directly to WrestleMania, first off, I'm just going to refresh Twitter just in case stuff's come out. So in terms of yesterday, there was the triple double whammy of news to do with all this. However, I guess the biggest one that came out was the news of blocking people from the EU from coming over and to mainland Europe, from mainland Europe to America. They're putting blocks on anybody travelling there. If I'm right, it's not a great thing, he said, because if I'm right, they can still get connecting flights. No, so just come to the UK or somewhere else, then fly to America, then they can get in, completely defeating the point. But anyway, on the surface, not a bad thing that's happened. There was one thing that was mentioned, and this is where I'm really struggling to dance that line of politics without kind of going into it. Like last week with Burn was just like an outlet of stuff, which is quite useful. But one of the things that, because it's relevant to WrestleMania, I'm going to have to get a tad political, but I'll try my best not to go too far past the line. But with the block on Europe, one of the things that President Trump was saying was that Europe has not handled it well like we have. We, as in America, they have not handled it well, and they've had these massive outbreak problems, unlike us in America, where we've been handling it much better, which is why we've got low numbers and things, and we're much fine. So we're putting blocks on Europeans from flying over. That's why I put the blocks on. Unfortunately, it still seems in the vein that those right at the top are in a blind faith that America will be fine from this, which in terms of stuff like this, that is very, very worrying. And reports are coming out that America is woefully unprepared. I mean, that doesn't mean that they can't improve and then handle it better than they are prepared for it, because that could always be the case. Italy's a prime example of that. They weren't prepared for it, but they've handled it extremely well by being so stern with it. France as well has been applauded. Canada as well has been applauded. Just in the handling of it, even though they weren't prepared for such a massive thing to happen. So it can always work out like that. However, and we're seeing it because this relates directly to the news today with WrestleMania, with the kind of the meetings and stuff. It's extremely reactionary. There's not much proactive stuff not much proactive activity going on. And that is, like, I'm looking at it from a distance, but it looks extremely worrying for America, especially as you can't get easily tested. So that was the other thing coming out, was the numbers are going down in places like China and South Korea. Both of those places have testing readily available to a very high degree, and they were very quick with it, and they were very strong on the testing. Those numbers are going down slowly, gradually, and that's a positive thing. But in terms of America, like, I thought I must have misread something when I saw, like, how much it costs to get the test thing, like £3,000. I was like, I can't have read that right. I was knackered. It was the day after AEW Revolution. I was like, I can't have read that right. I must have just been tired. Then I'd heard from an actual American, no. And it's just, this is, and it's one of those things where it's taken last night with the triple whammy of just the COVID news to just finally convince people the seriousness of this issue. It's been this same level of seriousness the entire time, and now, so in terms of blocking people from Europe, it's essentially too late, which is not the news you really want to hear. It's good because it stops the travel, which is a thing that is needed, or it puts a limit on it. As I said, you can always get a connecting flight, but and in terms of WrestleMania, that blocks a lot of the European fans from coming over, which again is, I think, in terms of this disease, I call that a positive. That's a good thing that has happened. It's just, obviously, I'm not sure what amount of great it will do. So putting that on in terms of WrestleMania isn't really going to affect the seriousness of it in the States. You're still going to see numbers going up, because America's one of the later countries to catch it and have its numbers going up. However, it is increasing one of the quickest of all the countries. And part of it, unfortunately, is down to mismanagement, which sucks. And they can, of course, because they weren't prepared for it, they can handle it better after being mishandled initially. But the words yesterday do not fill me with confidence. And that sucks. That's the that's the reality of it. The people in power are going to struggle to cope with this, and for me, they're making the same same mistakes that China made by trying to hide the actual seriousness of it. But the weird thing is, the world knows how serious it is, and it still happened. It's another thing, because I think I was trying to say earlier, outside of America, this isn't a political issue. It's just in America. The whole line about mass hysteria, that's not a thing outside of America. Well, at least I've not heard it over here. I've not seen many messages about it from mainland Europe. Like, certainly not mainland Europe, where, so many people are catching it and dying. It's only an America thing. And I understand most of my listeners are American, and some of them are, I guess supporters of the person I'm bashing. And so it's like second week in a row that I've teed off a certain section of my listeners. But this is so beyond that the fact that it's being contained by politics, that's the irritating thing. So when we talk about it, if I was just talk about it, about the British thing, politics would never be a thing. The closest we would get is how the Prime Minister is handling going to the next step via the medical experience he's being given. In our country, our Prime Minister is working very, very closely with an extremely experienced medical expert in this specific field who knows exactly what he's talking about. And all of the advice, all of his actions are from that man's words, or that guy's team's words as well. So it's a very, very different situation compared to elsewhere, where it's not really listening to the experts, as far as I can tell, because they're still being reactive instead of proactive. It's a worrying thing. The reason I've gotten so kind of tied up in that little political line, which was like not easy to dance over, really. It's really not easy to dance over that. But the reason I'm doing that is because with WrestleMania, will it be cancelled? This is a little bit difficult. So the whole point with will it be cancelled or not is to do with do with the 60,000 people in one stadium. It might not be that now, given that European fans can't get there, but it's that many people packed into an area. If the virus does spread, then they all go back all over the world. The people who catch it might have no issues whatsoever, but they'll spread it to people who might have issues, and they will die. And it depends. Are you fine? Are you fine with being responsible for that? If you are, I am not that kind of person. But in terms of like the actual steps to go in place to stopping WrestleMania, it was a really weird day. I was not expecting the news to go the way it was. So because of these serious talks going on, I was like, oh well, maybe there's a chance that the state, I couldn't remember the bloody word. I couldn't remember. Also, I will get to comments eventually. I'm just kind of blasting through this initial piece, which is taking me ages to kind of get through. I'll be honest, the political thing was, I didn't want to spend that long on it. I wanted to get back to this bit now, but I'm finally there. But in terms of today, with the meeting that was held between, I know Vince McMahon was there. I think it was more of like a full-on meeting to do with entertainment and things with it, and events that are going on within the Tampa area. WrestleMania, of course, being the biggest one within the nearest amount of time. So it's like a big deal. And the confusing message, because there's kind of two parts to it. Part one is that they are not now going to cancel WrestleMania. As in, as of today, it's not being cancelled today. That doesn't mean it won't be, or postponed or whatever. It just means it won't be today. However, they've put the thing of, they'll wait a week to see how things progress. Which again, I'm a bit worried that that's being reactive rather than proactive, but to say that's at least a bit of proactiveness. So at least it's happening now. As I said, you can handle it better than you were prepared for. It requires a lot of effort, but you can do it. So they how it play out and put it in WWE's hands what they want to do, but they put the onus on them that the medical expertise is saying that it probably should be cancelled. Immediately I'm like, then why is it not being cancelled by the mayor of Florida or whoever it was? That meeting of Tampa, sorry. Obviously I don't know how these things work in America, but it seems like if the medical advice says this, why are you not cancelling it? Because that's why I gave the context of Boris Johnson earlier. It does tie him AWing it. It's not loose random threads. The reason I brought it up is the decisions made are so tightly tied. That's a crap sentence. So tightly woven to the medical expertise that the sentence of we're going to wait and see what the medical advice says that we should cancel it. That seems crazy to me. Like, why are you not just doing that? It's like, But there are a ton of articles for me to get through. So, before I came on live, WWE, they gave their statement on, I guess, the effects it might have on them. So I can kind of like blast through this first. So it's about WWE communicating perspectives regarding the potential impact of the coronavirus on the company's financial report. Basically, their statement says that they have substantial financial wealth. They'll be perfectly fine in that regard, and they'll be fine to kind of, for the short term at least, not have to like produce all of the content. They're healthy, and the safety of their fans is utmost. I'm looking it up now. As soon as I have to read, but yeah. The company is healthy, they'll be fine, and the health and safety of their fans, the performers, employees is their top priority. So they are looking into the potential impact of the coronavirus and the way that it may change the way that WWE operate. And obviously, the projected things, so in terms of speaking to investors, the projected money that was meant to be coming in, so things like live event ticket sales, merchandise, that obviously would just have to be completely forgotten in terms of the projections for WWE, but they are perfectly fine, essentially. It's not going to destroy them. The worry is more with the indie scene, especially the indie shows who would have been running WrestleMania weekend. It's like a massive advertisement for them. That's gone now, which, sucks. But that is obviously same statements from them all. OTT as well over here in the UK, or Irish promotion in the UK, we're meant to be in the UK for a show. Ireland have put full-on clamps on, like kind of cancelling almost schools and everything's been closed for the foreseeable future. So it's pretty. So yeah, it's pretty serious. So the other thing in terms of WWE statement, more tied to the Tampa, Florida news. So this is an article which I've got up posted by Brent Brookhouse of the CBSSports.com. The CBS, I sound like an American talking about English football teams. It's the Manchester City. No, it's not. It's not the Manchester. WWE announced today that it's preparing contingency plans for WrestleMania 36. After it's to do with the meeting, obviously, with Tampa, Florida. It remains committed to hosting the event at the stadium, the Pirate Stadium, whatever it's called, amid concerns regarding the coronavirus epidemic. Official statement from WWE: while we remain committed to hosting WrestleMania at the stadium on Sunday, April 5th, we are putting contingency plans in place in the event that it is cancelled by government officials, civil authorities, and or local venues. Which, again, I find interesting because Florida put the onus on WWE to cancel it, and in WWE's statement, they're putting things in place for if government officials or other authorities force them to cancel. So the likelihood is WWE will not cancel. However, with so many different bodies cancelling, like today, like the added ones were NHL and MLS, like both of those suspended. Oh, and NCAA. So the sports, I guess franchises. That's not right. Sports bodies all over America are postponing, and or I've forgotten the word. They're postponing really, and that's in terms of WWE, the PR. I'm not sure will their PR take a massive hit if they go ahead with the show. So second half of the statement. The health and safety of our fans, performers, and employees are our top priorities, and we are monitoring the situation closely with our partners and government officials in Tampa Bay. So it's a for me that's a little bit interesting because Tampa Bay put the onus on WWE to cancel, and then WWE seemingly relies on them. So it's like the most likely situation, what it looks like as of today, because things will change. Obviously, they've changed so rapidly in like every 30 minutes. So what it will be like in a week's time is going to be like unpredictable to say the least. But the way things are looking like is that the event will be cancelled or postponed or something, because the way the virus is so easily spread, more and more people are going to get it, and you can't really host an event in that situation, unfortunately. The rest of the world is showing what happens. Italy is the message, is if you do not act on it quick enough, this is what happens. And of course, they were another unprepared country who are they have been handling it extremely strictly, but they weren't prepared for it when it hit. And same thing, unfortunately, in America, they weren't prepared for it, and they're not handling it well either. So it's going to spread. Therefore, what do you do about the event in that time? So that's why it looks like it's not going to go ahead. Of course, there's so much money tied to it, and that's a different. I guess I have to explain a little bit. The philosophy of it makes so much money, why would they cancel? That's a very, I guess, American, way of looking at business and the social world. I guess Europe being a lot more socialist is humanitarian. The humanitarian issue that trumps everything. Pardon the pun. that rules over everything. Essentially, there is no argument of but the money that we'll lose from doing this. It's the only time it's come up is if businesses don't have the like the indie shows running WrestleMania, like they'll struggle financially off the back of this, and it could have a massive impact on that scene. Over here in the UK, the big argument is like lower league football clubs who don't really make that much money. They kind of live off those weekly ticket sales. They could not host empty arena events. So empty arena matches, for the rest of the season. So it's stuff like that. So it's a very, very different outlook on it. So that argument to me is obviously it's a culture clash where like me with my English brain just hearing somebody say that it obviously clashes with the world that I've been brought up with, where obviously your other man comes first, not your money. But that's not how it works, especially in certain sectors in America. So yeah, I'm not saying all Americans, obviously. I don't want to piss off the other half that I'm not pissed off. To piss off both of them. So in terms of SmackDown as well, Friday Night SmackDown for tomorrow is going to air as regularly scheduled, but it will emanate from WWE's training facility in Orlando, Florida. with only essential personnel in attendance. This is an official statement from WWE. The event was originally scheduled in Detroit, Michigan, and it's been moved to Orlando, Florida. So it's fair to say it's going to have a little different of a feel. We don't know what's going to happen on Monday Night Raw yet. It's meant to be in Pittsburgh. They were hyping it up on Monday, but of course, all of that is... and like the argument of what they're going to do about their storylines, that really doesn't matter. Like, in terms of the whole scope of this of what they're going to do creatively, what they're going to put on television, it doesn't matter. That is not a concern. With all these decisions that are being made, what are WWE going to do if they can't build to WrestleMania? That's not a concern. Number one priority is getting a handle on this virus and the humanitarian side. It really doesn't matter, yeah. But also, a bit more on SmackDown airing from the PC. So they were originally scheduled to run in Detroit from Little Caesars or Caesars Arena, Caesars, in Detroit, Michigan, but they've been moved to Orlando, Florida instead. So, yeah, and NXT was also from the Performance Center, and which coincidentally that was due to Full Sail needing the university for something else. I don't know what's quite if I can find it. Is it posted in this article on Laws of Pain? Yes, it is. The Full Sail Hall of Fame week. So in a massive coincidence, they'd set up Full Sail to air NXT out of, so they could just use the same set for SmackDown. In a massive coincidence. If you're a 205 Live fan, don't really know what's meant to happen. Interestingly, Jeff Hardy's still meant to return at Full Sail in the Performance Center. Sorry, not Full Sail, at the Performance Center. So that's interesting. They've got John Cena coming out to address the Fiend. How does the Fiend work? Surely it's just going to be a video. The Fiend at the Performance Center. I don't know, it'll be so unique. Yeah. That'd be cool. I've literally just said the creative doesn't matter in this, but that's kind of, in terms of like SmackDown and the short term, yes. So, in terms of WrestleMania, what do they do if it does get cancelled? In terms of the question, then. The question of the bloody thing. WWE to cancel WrestleMania, ? Doesn't really work as a sentence. That is all down to both the state, the government, and WWE. If there's no word from the state or the government, WWE will likely go ahead with it. I don't know if the PR is going to be enough to damage it. That would be the only thing to hold it back. As in, they assess that it will damage the brand too much if they went ahead with it, especially as the consequences could be it becomes a petri dish to spread the virus, which is like a massive concern, especially with the amount of people who descend upon the city as well. It's a massive event all week long. Never mind just on that like one little bit for WrestleMania and NXT and Hall of Fame. It's the whole week as well. A massive descending of fans. So yeah, but so really, should it go ahead? For me, no. But they can postpone it, as in that's what's happened with other events. Some events have been, like E3 has been full on cancelled for the year, but that's more like a 3-day thing set aside from everything else. WrestleMania is a full week. It's not just a one-off show like some of the other events that you've heard be cancelled. They're like short-term one-off shows. So yeah. I'm still thinking about because I was about to read the next thing, but I am actually no. I'll finish my thing on WWE. Then I can jump over. I can read the comments, and then I can go to WrestleMania. I can go to the other promotions who have also got stuff like news coming out. Refresh your Twitter imp, so you can read all of the stuff, or don't because your laptop doesn't like the internet at that part of the house. So yeah. So as it stands, WrestleMania 36 is still going ahead. As in terms of the question, really, the answer is no. WWE don't look like the ones that are going to cancel it. If anything, it will be Florida giving the decree to cancel. Because WWE don't want to see them like the bad guys who cancelled WrestleMania. They want the government officials to do it. And that could be a bit of a stone wall where they're not going to take the blame either for, I guess, costing the state so much money from taking away WrestleMania as well. Like, if either side doesn't want to take the blame, really it's grow some balls and look at the bigger picture here. But if neither of them do, then WrestleMania goes ahead. The question about attendance, will people turn up in that thing when they're fully aware of what it's actually like in Tampa? So that'd be my number one advice. If you are going to WrestleMania and it does go ahead, my number one advice would be stay informed. Like, whatever you... And if you are infected, if you just so happen to come down with symptoms, do not go. Like, it will suck, obviously, for you, where you got all that money invested, especially if you're not from the area. But still, I personally wouldn't put it on, because it's the likelihood of this virus spreading, given the other context that Tampa is already infected. It's already got an outbreak issue. Like, it's not a great sign. Anyway, so... There was the talk with a scheduled meeting about COVID-19 earlier today with WWE. So there was the question of what would happen if it was actually cancelled. So what contingencies are there in place? Apparently, June or July is one of the WWE's contingency plans. With this is coming from Alex McCarthy of TalkSport. Highly recommend to follow, especially for English. Yeah, highly recommend to follow. Just in general. Pretty trustworthy, that lad. Anyway, with the European travel ban, number of events shutting down, and even the NBA season outright suspended, how can WWE actually run WrestleMania with all of that facts and context around it? So, yes. Also, wrestlers Sheamus and Drew McIntyre, I don't know if anyone else was over here in the UK, they were scheduled to do stuff over here in the United Kingdom, but they've been pulled back, like, just in case something happens. Example of being proactive. UK is not on the list of the banned. However, that sounds like a serious thing. We're not on the list of the banned, but we are projected to continue rising. Like today, we went to, I guess, the next step, because the way we're handling it is there are clear steps of when the next area, when we reach that next bar, we up the ante in terms of our containment methods, essentially. So it's all set out so that it's not a sudden surprise of every day is fine and then suddenly nope, things are getting cancelled, everything's clamped down. It's like a sudden next day your life completely changes. The idea is it more gradually happens and the public are informed the entire step of the way, rather than President Trump appearing on television saying this is now the state of things, and by the way, I've not even consulted Europe on this, which was that was like, really? You're gonna have Americans in Europe? Like, what? You've not even consulted Europe to help get those Americans back. It's yeah. Don't get into politics. I've already jumped into that. Jump out the pool. So yes. So that is with WWE. The looking liking Jesus. The state of play right now is that WrestleMania 36 is going ahead. Florida put it in the hands of WWE to make the call. However, WWE, their statement is saying we're going to wait and see. We're making contingency plans just in case we are made to cancel. So it's looking like they are, out of their own choice, if it's left to WWE, they won't cancel. But it may become like a bigger thing than that. So yeah. So anyway, because of the topic, I'm going to have to proofread these before this. And so essentially, NFL Guru 22. Oh, also, shall I check Spreaker as well? Like not as many. You don't get as many live listeners on Spreaker anyway, apart from Kath. Thank you, Kath, regular listener. Anyway, pretty much saying that this is another example of, I guess, people being dumb and reactionary. No, essentially no. That's exactly what I was talking about. I say talking about. I don't think I actually brought this up on the pod. It must have just been talking about earlier, because of course this is the topic of conversation. With the line mass hysteria, again, that's an American thing as far as I can tell. I've not heard anyone say it over here in the UK. I've heard it from Americans, especially like on television. It's not been said on ours, but I have heard it said on American by American like known entities and whatever. And for me, that is part of the misinformation that was immediately spread when, for some reason, in America, the news of the virus immediately became a political issue, and the mass hysteria thing is tied to that. That's where it originates from. That's where that line kind of came from originally, in terms of specifically this. So, in terms of it's just mass hysteria. For me, that is, you've not kept up to date. You're not informed about the seriousness of this. And by updating and informed, I mean look outside of America. Look at the countries that have been infected. Look at those who are trying to deal with it. Again, Italy is a fantastic example of unfortunately, what to project for America, for the country who was not prepared, and then they're forced to react the best they can and get a handle on things afterwards. I'm not saying it's going to be as bad, but it's not looking good, essentially. America was one of the last countries to get the virus, and it's kind of come across the West in that way. That's just how I picture it. It's probably not done like that. There'll be people all over the place all the time. But still, in terms of the first reported cases and the amount they've got, America is the quickest curve. And there are many reasons for that, and I don't want to spend the rest of it getting into politics, but yeah. So, is this mass hysteria? No. Unless you're one of those people who only thinks about... That's what I said earlier, where are you fine with if you go to WrestleMania, you contract the virus, you are fine, but then you pass it on to somebody else who might pass it on to somebody else who then passes it on to someone who dies. Like, that's how this works. If you're not in the vulnerable category, there are people who are, and it's so contagious that if you come into contact with it, you will get it. And people have varying degrees, and you don't have to be over 50 to get it. It targets the lungs, and I think the heart is affected partly because of that, but as far as I know, it mainly targets the lungs. So if you've got asthma, you're more at risk. If you've got... I was on a roll for a second. I suddenly realised it's nearly midnight. My brain turned off. Yeah, so if you've got asthma, and if you've got get heart problems as well, then you're more likely to struggle with this as well. You don't have to be over 50. The reason people over 50 are more likely to die from it or enter a more critical condition is because of what it targets. It targets the lungs, the heart becomes affected as well. And as you are older, you are more likely to have issues with those specific things. Young people, it's not as much. But when you are older, those things specifically have an issue. Not specifically like the ocean. They specifically within that bracket, it's more likely to be an issue. So, again, I'd call it a misconception, but again, the numbers will still be more likely over 50, but it doesn't target young people. No, it targets everybody. No one is exempt from this. So, like, another example, young children are not at risk, but one of my best friends, his daughter was born with a heart defect, and she is at risk. So, like, obviously, he is bricking it. So, that's another example of it. It's not an over 50 thing. I've got to keep going down. I've not... someone said breaking. That's why I got Twitter open. It's just to find the breaking stuff. I'll do my best. Burnley away at Man City on Saturday. Is that going ahead? I don't know. Just to swing it back to football, I brought up Arteta. Yeah, Adrian 11 UK. Burnley away at Man City on Saturday. Man City was cancelled against Real Madrid because the Real Madrid players had mingled with the Real Madrid basketball players who were known to have contracted the virus, or someone was. So the whole Real Madrid team was quarantined for, I can't remember, it's like 10 days. Liga has been suspended for 2 game days, which will be like 2 weeks or so. And therefore Real Madrid Man City did not go ahead. So Man City are nice and vested for their game at Burnley. However, are they away at Saturday because of Mikel Arteta contracting the virus? The Premier League have called I've drifted from wrestling, but it's a related to a question, it's fine. So the Premier League have called an emergency meeting tomorrow morning to address what to do now that one of the managers has contracted the virus officially. We might see either full-on cancellations or trying to reschedule stuff. Again, what they did in La Liga was one team got quarantined, and also, as a Nottingham Forest fan, my owner is directly responsible. It links weirdly back to the owner of Nottingham Forest. I am from Nottingham. I'm a Notts lad. I support Nottingham. I'm not a lad. I'm a Notts boy. I'm not from the Nottinghamshire. The owner of Nottingham Forest, Marinakis, he is Greek. He owns Olympiakos. In the Euro League, it's one of the European tournaments of the football. Arsenal played Olympiakos. The owner of Nottingham Forest, Marinakis, who is also the owner of Olympiakos, went to that match at the Emirates Stadium, which is Arsenal Stadium, and I'm putting info in for the Americans who don't follow, and Marinakis was there, and he obviously mingled with people, and a few days later he was confirmed as having the coronavirus. He only started to feel ill once he was back in Greece. So it doesn't take a genius to see the link there. Burnley Man City is on so far. I'm jumping down the comments. I'm not meant to be. I'm not meant to be. Oh dear. I'm not meant to be jumping down. Anyway, yeah. So it doesn't take a genius to see where that came from. So technically, the Nottingham Forest owner is directly responsible for Arsenal now. Like, what do they do for the rest of the season? Like, what do they do? So yeah, again, proof this is bigger than wrestling. Like it's having an impact on absolutely everyday life. Just look at the Irish statement as well. Like that was directly addressed as how life changes from this day on, just for a little while. In Scotland, Scotland has banned fans over 40 today. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's all right. Okay, as I said earlier, it's not doesn't target young people. It targets certain areas, and the older you are, the more likely you are to have issues with those areas, therefore be more susceptible to issues from it. People under 50 and 40 have died, but it's mostly in mainland Europe and China, which of course, yeah, not great. And of course games, yeah, with a 500. That was the other thing as well, where there were ban-ins. I'll get to that when I talk about AEW. I've got articles open for AEW as well. So after, I thought I'd do all the WWE related stuff, go through the comments, then jump to AEW. So if you're not as interested in the AEW news, you can tune out, but you've got through all the WWE stuff. I'll do that first. So that's a reply to another comment. Yes, I'm just go through all. Breaking. This is the breaking news from earlier. The XFL have just cancelled their regular season. It may fail again now because of this. Vince has to be pissed. Yeah, you would think he's put so much into that venture for the XFL. So much has gone into that, only for this to happen and the question becomes: will they have any buzz when they come back as well? Which I'm assuming is like one of the big, in terms of generating buzz for the product. Like this is the thing for me on YouTube and even on Laws of Pain, as columns. Regularity and posting every single week on the same day or the same days if you're being YouTube proper. Like regularity is a massive thing in continuing to generate that buzz, and not being there, that's a massive thing. Like, I've noticed it. Like whenever I don't post a column, my return column kind of struggles sometimes. I don't know why. Maybe it's just the brand's not out there. Sometimes I come back and it's just like yeah, if I don't clickbait it, will people click it? kind of thing. Like the brand kind of dies down a little bit. Or when I'm not able to do a show, when I return my show the week after it does this podcast, like the numbers aren't anywhere near as good. So like being there on a regular, I'm a really small example, obviously, but obviously being there regularly, it really, really does help generate that buzz. And XFL not being there, yeah, that's not. Well, presumably what helps is, I think, have the NFL said anything? My assumption is the NFL have. I'm not entirely. Again, I see them as very other side of the. Oh, it's just mass hysteria. I see them too aligned with that side, but again, I don't live in America. I don't really know. It's an alien world to me. I don't follow that kind of football thing anyway. And anyway, the final comment as I get down to the bottom of this. It's worked as a nice kind of breather between the WWE serious stuff and now the effects on AEW, and there's a couple of things to do with Ring of Honor as well. You finally get down to the final comment of Burnley Man City as of now is currently on. We'll see what happens after the Premier League have had their officially thing. And as a Nottingham Forest supporter, we're not in the Premier League, we're in the league below in the Championship. Again, context for the foreigners who don't know, or just people who don't know anything about football. Yeah, Nottingham Forest are in the league below. We are currently in the playoff spots to get into the Premier League. So if the season was cancelled, as a Forest fan, it's a team who have struggled to just survive. Not that long ago, we survived in the league by goal difference. Oh my God, it was so scary, so tense, so dramatic to the final day, staying up on goal difference, the heart rate of that day. But it slowly climbed, slowly got more stable, and now in the playoffs. And then to see that climb, that progression, and then the season gets cancelled, it's that sucks. Like with Liverpool as well, with their incredible streak in the Premier League, to have the season ever cancelled or suspended, yeah, that sucks. But we did get that lol Forest. But with that, we did get the glorious meme of some Jurgen Klopp walking out yesterday, and the fans have reached out the hands as normal, and Klopp's just like, pull your hands back, you idiots. What are you doing? It's oh yeah, I love Klopp. Right, this has ended that's worked as a really good kind of transition between the two different halves of the show. If you are sending in comments, continue sending comments, but I've got articles up, I'm looking at stuff, I'm refreshing Twitter just in case something new breaking comes out. As again, thank you, commenters. If anything new does come out, do tell me because I'm doing a show. I'm a bit busy. So AEW, they have had to change events due to the coronavirus. They've been building their Blood and Guts pay-per-view, their Blood and Guts TV special, where they're essentially doing a War Games match, but they can't use the War Games name, so they just called it Blood and Guts. And again, for me, with Dusty Rhodes inventing the match, but I don't see it as, they're stealing it from WWE. No, it's Cody Rhodes taking something his dad created. So, yeah, I'm also somebody who's really enjoying AEW Dynamite. So when I'm writing about them, I feel like I may give them a bit of a pass just because of how much I have enjoyed them overall. So when they have a little bit of a wobbly, it's kind of just like, but overall though, that's the opposite of WWE, where with WWE I've gone, that bit was amazing, but overall though, like the exact same kind of ending gag, but it works both ways. So anyway, with AEW and the coronavirus, I've got articles up on Laws of Pain. I've got random stuff up on Twitter as well. In terms of just in general, they have got a bit of an issue where, so in terms of Blood and Guts specifically, they were, I think, if I'm right, that was meant to take place in New York, and that is a ban has been put on by the New York State Governor. He's got his name here as well, Andrew Cuomo, non-American, never heard of him. He announced today that the state is banning most gatherings with 500 or more until further notice. Official statement: we are taking new actions to reduce the density of people across the state. Starting Friday at 5 p.m, that's tomorrow, gatherings with 500 people or more will not be permitted in New York State. Additionally, for facilities with an occupancy of 500 or fewer, we are reducing the legal capacity by 50%. I probably didn't need to read all of that out, but AW were meant to take place. It's next Wednesday. I'm a numpty. It wasn't Blood and Guts. So next Wednesday, they were meant to be from Rochester, New York. What's this? Blue Cross Arena. Again, never heard of it. So they're meant to be from there, and obviously that ban puts a stop on that. And so there's a bit of a issue. Apparently, there is word to them AW reorganising to get to Rochester on like July 8th. If you happen to be in the area, I stuttered all the way through that. The post is on Laws of Pain if you want to see it written down and not an Englishman stuttering over his words. So that is to be rescheduled and stuff. New York State, of course, is another thing. WWE is scheduled for Madison Square Garden on March 22nd for a non-televised special. That obviously is going to be implemented. That's going to be affected, obviously. But there's been no statement from the Garden. Most arenas and stadiums are putting out statements themselves, which we'll see with AW with further stuff as well. The New Jersey one. So I've got the official statement from the New Jersey Devils because it's to do with the arena. It's to do with the Prudential Center. Again, the guy's going to run dry now. I don't say it anymore. So statement from the New Jersey Devils. The New Jersey Devils and Prudential Center are supportive of the NHL. So they are a hockey team. Ice hockey team. Decision to suspend the season. Similarly, in consultation with our live event partners, promoters and artists, we have postponed all events at the Prudential Center through the end of March. Health and well-being of our fans, players, performers, artists, staff members, blah, 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 are most important, and we remain in close communication with health state and all that stuff. So it's the official statement from them to do with closing stuff down. And as such, we are committed to assisting our Armenia associates through this period. In this time of need, we need to band together and take care of people, says the managing partner. Our teams, our cities and the leagues in which we operate are a family, and we are committed to looking out for one another. So, yeah, support of the NHL suspending operations, just suspending the season, which has, of course, a massive effect on Blood and Guts, which was meant to be from the Prudential Center. So that's the one that gets affected, obviously, by this as well. The Prudential Center has cancelled all events through March. So, long story short, Blood and Guts is not taking place from there. So, it's not a could change. If it's taking place, it's not taking place there. Luckily, both AEW and WWE have places they can fall back on. AEW has Jacksonville and WWE has Orlando, Florida with the Performance Center and everything. So, they can still put on shows with limited audiences if they really, really want to. Tony Khan as well has put out a statement saying that if employees are like a bit nervous about working and going all over the world and whatever, then they don't have to come into work and they won't get their push taken away or anything, because of course how serious this is. So yeah, that's kind of a decent employer line. Like, it's so opposite to other things I've seen, where it's the kind of like the big one that blew up on Twitter of like somebody was given, I don't know where from, like you'd get 3 days sick leave to recover from it, and after that you're on your like own kind of working stuff. And it's just like, that is how you get people with the virus who have still got it to go to work, and they're not outside the contagion period yet, so they're going to spread it again. So it's, again, massive. Again, America is not prepared for this, and new things need to put in place. Again, like Italy, they've put massive clamps on it. Italy, I meant Ireland, they've put massive clamps on just the social world and how it's operating at the moment. It's going to get to that point, and employers don't seem to be helping in that case, but a decent statement from him. Anyway, also with AEW, I've got one more thing. So, as a precautionary measure for the show that's meant to be taking place in Rochester, AEW put out a tweet just before I went live with the as a precautionary measure against COVID-19, we are relocating next week's Dynamite show on March 18th, which is next week's Dynamite show, to Jacksonville, Florida. So when it said they've got somewhere to fall back on, that's immediately what's happening. It's going to have a limited attendance, just like WWE doing. SmackDown might be a good example of what to expect for the next coming weeks, where they're going to maybe continue to produce shows, but they won't be travelling around America, and they won't have that big crowds. It will just be the product in a kind of smaller area. Suddenly, shows are going to have that NXT, like, just above indie, like indie with a fantastic budget, like, kind of level, which I'm generally interested to see what these shows feel like. On like a entertainment level, I guess, what are the shows going to feel like? Yeah, so also WrestleCon's tweeted about cancelling shows. OTT I've already mentioned as well. A lot more. If you are planning on going to, I guess, a show in your local area, go to their Twitter, go to their website, check it out, because there's a chance the events are getting cancelled, especially WrestleMania weekend. So, yeah. So Ring of Honor Wrestling is the final thing to address. So, official tweet from Ring of Honor Wrestling account, Twitter account, sorry. Dearest Ring of Honor family, due to most recent developments regarding COVID-19's, the meet and greet with Marty Scurll and PCO was cancelled today. It did not take place. Safety and health of our fans at midnight, talents and staff are always a top priority. So that was cancelled. And was there something else? Oh, that's New York Governor. WrestleCon talk about cancelling the trip. If I could find it one more. Right, Ring of Honor cancelled the meet and greet, and Ring of Honor have cancelled the 18th anniversary show as well. So just kind of keep in touch in terms of cancellations of things. If I go to just to check if anything new has come out before I go to bed. Oh, there's the official thing. SmackDown will have no regular audience this week. WWE's contingency plans. I'm just clicking. This is me clicking on Laws of Pain now. I think I've already gone through this one before we went live. Yes, I did. Right, and that's is the computer frozen? No, they're not. Right. Alright, so that's the end of that. So I will be going to bed now. But thank you for listening to this. Thank you for comments, questions, queries, and whatever. Something theories. Nobody listens. Only people who listen to video game podcast would get that. Not many people do that anymore. Anyway, yeah. So I go through the final comments and then I'll drift off. Also, I was meant to be, in terms of like my schedule for this week, I was meant to be recording today. However, with the rapid rate of which news was breaking, there was no way. And again, thank you for people who sent in information. There was no way I could possibly do this show, edit it, put the video together in Adobe Premiere, upload it, and have the information not be out of date. Because things were changing so rapidly and so quickly. So again, thank you to everybody who sent in information just to keep me up to date with stuff. Right, so final comment is about football. So I get to sign off with football again. Which is, for me, this is cool because there's a chance that the entire league gets postponed and things. So this is like the final moments of being able to talk about football with the league still alive and active. So Forest, they are doing much better than Notts County. I'm not receiving audio. It's not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Apparently you're going to be. My internet's have a wobble. Apparently you might have get a bit of pixelization and it won't be very smooth streaming. I'm signing out anyway. If I'm stuttering all over the place, it's fine. Anyway, so before I sign off, like the video, subscribe. The engagement on the video is the best thing really that you can do in terms of helping the channel out, helping me out. You can follow me on Twitter at the Damn Implicat. That's damn as in damn. I've not done that gag in ages. And I feel like I've not responded to the account. I'll get that in a second. But yeah. So subscribe to Lots of Pain on YouTube. And with... Oh, bloody hell. Actually, because I've forgotten that, I've mucked it up. I'm going to pretend I wasn't signing off and I'll read the comments. So, Forest doing much better than Notts County. If you don't know, Notts County, there were 2 football teams in Nottingham. Notts County were... I think they were the first football team in the UK, so massive history behind them, or as in the first official to sign on the sheet. So we bloody take it, and they got relegated from the entire football league because there's consequences to finishing bottom. And Notts County are in the league below the final one because there's tiers. Once you fall out the football league, there's tiers as well that you have to climb, and it's. So County not doing that well, really. They got owners now, so at least there's that. Forest in playoffs, maybe getting the Premier League. It's fair to say, different ends of the scale, putting it lightly. In Italy, the football season has been properly cancelled. Notts County, the oldest club in the world as well. I'll give football information. So, yeah, I'm just going to search that. Italy, Serie, if I can bloody spell Serie A, COVID. There we go. If I can really spell. I couldn't do this on my laptop and not done bad things. You know what? This isn't the time to do this. Because players are tested positive, and I heard something about Ronaldo as well, testing positive as well. Anyway. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you for listening and sending me information and things. Getting me onto football. It's nothing to do with wrestling. Anyway, I'll be back next week to maybe talk about something a bit more positive, but I doubt it. My plan was to do this, get all of this kind of content off of my head and just away. And in my column, which we'll be posting on Sunday. I try and post it every single Sunday when I can. My last 2 have done really well. It's kind of cool to see. Or last 3. Oh, who cares? It's nice when columns do well. So I'll be posting those next Sunday. And I will be back here on Thursday. But yeah, getting this off my chest so my column's not full of it. It's just a little section. And I can actually talk about Raw, SmackDown, AEW and NXT. I talk about all 4 shows every single week. That will be posted on Sunday. And I will be back here on Thursday. Please do check out the other shows here on LOP Radio. Hopefully tomorrow on the LOP YouTube, I will be uploading the... What's it bloody called? Dynamite After Dark. I'm tired. Dynamite After Dark will be going live after episodes of Dynamite every single week. I need to hopefully get that video up tomorrow here on the Lots of Pain YouTube channel. It's already up on the podcast feed if you want to subscribe to our feed on Spreaker. If you go to Laws of Pain post for this video or whatever, the podcast feed is there if you're not listening on podcast, obviously. Vice versa, if you are listening to podcast, why aren't you subscribed to Laws of Pain? Why haven't you liked the video? Engagement surprisingly helps. I always thought it's one of those things that YouTubers banged on about, but it was kind of a nice thing to happen. But no, it generally helps the channel massively. When I looked into it, who knew? Seemingly every YouTuber aside from me. And it turns out my laptop needs an update. Oh, that's not relevant to this. I'm signing off. Fridays, we've got the Legacy series covering NWA Power every single week with Mizfan and Mystic going into great detail about the NWA shows on YouTube. Saturdays is reserved for AEW pay-per-view coverage. Sundays, WWE pay-per-view coverage. Tuesdays is Kingdom of Honor with Jaman and his friend Jeff talking whatever American wrestling they want to talk about. From the indies to AEW to WWE, whatever, they will cover it. And then Thursdays, it's back to me. And we've also got a new a new podcast here on Laws of Pain Radio. And because it's new, I can't remember its name at midnight. If I could be the Quick and Painless Pro Wrestling Podcast. If you want to go check that out as well and give them a listen. And with that, I say thank you. Normally I say I bid you adieu, but it doesn't feel right. the tone's not right. So thank you to everybody who sent me information like during this. Thank you to Adrian for going crazy in the chat with all the football knowledge. It helped cheer up after the really negative talk to just talk about football. It's quite nice. Anyway, I'll be back next week. With that, I say thank you for listening, and I bid you adieu. Adios.